Wayne. We are here on Facebook Live. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Oh, man. All right, we're just going to go like, okay. All right. So thank you everybody at home who is here joining us. We are going to be sharing today a little bit of information with a sound healing guru. And I kind of mentioned earlier in my story, kind of like an OG. You know, Wayne Perry has been around doing this work for over 25 years. And it is an honor to kind of get to share this space with him. And just this time last year, I had been delving deeply into his work, Sound Medicine, which is a book that he put together in the early 2000s about sound healing and different aspects to it, and how to use your own human voice to heal and to realign and to bring yourself back into perfect harmony. So thank you, Wayne, for joining us. And if you could kind of give us some more about you and what you do and some of your background.
Sure. Well, that's a pretty big question. I've been doing this for 28 years. I opened the first sound therapy center in California in the spring of 1992, right around this time. And I don't know, I kind of got into it by accident. I moved from the Midwest to California in search of the proverbial record deal as a professional singer in Chicago. And I found I didn't much like the music business or the people in it. It was too commercial. I was never into pop music particularly. So I went into radio. I was doing a radio show on some announcing on Saturday night on KCLA in Los Angeles. And I created a couple of different shows. I was hosting and producing an alternative music show and an interview show. And I was the music critic and film critic for a while. And but my favorite show was an interview show, Heart Touch with Wayne Perry, where I interviewed healers and shamans and people kind of on the cutting edge of consciousness, as it were. And this was before Oprah, by the way. And I had, it was like a kid in a candy store because I always loved alternative healing and alternative lifestyles and such. And so one of the guests that I had on after a number of months doing the show was the founder of bioacoustics. Bioacoustics is a study of the frequencies that emanate from living organisms. And it was fascinating to me. And she had sent me some videos of people with severe illnesses that healed them with sound, and severe environmental allergies and cancer patients, and a teenager, about 18 or 19, that grew a kneecap with sound, a shattered kneecap that the doctor said where it was the history had to be replaced. And I saw like before and after photos of how they grew the bone literally with sound, and when it was the size of a quarter, they just called it rogue cartilage, the doctors. And then when it got to be bigger than a silver dollar and close to a kneecap, they had no explanation for it. And there were a lot of wild stories I could tell you about like that, that just really opened up my head and my eyes and my mind. And I was just fascinated. And then I was in the first bioacoustic training in California, which was one of 17 people that was certified in bioacoustics, and learning the frequencies of the elements in the periodic table. And it was pretty left-brained and a lot to wrap my mind around. So I went to Phoenix and I did the training a second time because there was so much to learn. And after the second time, I just knew this was too profound to pass up. This was something that I had to be a part of, because I remember reading in college a few years earlier that from Edgar Casey that sound would be the medicine of the future, and it always stuck in my head. And I was into sound yoga at the time. I've been into sound yoga since I was in college. So I wound up breaking up my band that I had and 3 of the 4 radio shows I was producing, and I put all my energy into Heart Touch, this interview radio show, and I took it to television when I started traveling with the sound therapy. At the same time, I was at the beginning of my sound therapy practice, and it opened up the Sound Therapy Center of Los Angeles, and started speaking as a keynote speaker at some health and wellness conferences and traveling. I couldn't continue the radio show because it was a live show on Friday nights. And so I took it to television where I could pre-record the shows. And I was in cable television for 13 years talking about alternative health and sound therapy, and especially for people that are agoraphobic and couldn't leave the house. And, they gave me some exposure on TV for a number of years. As I was traveling, I'd record a few shows and schedule them, and then hit the road. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I had invested over $4,000 in sound machines and subwoofer speakers and multimeters and different technological equipment. And I was waiting for my personal kidney stone attack, because at the time I'd been suffering from kidney stones every year for 7 years. And I learned to avoid surgery from a Russian healer, taught me how to use vitamin B6 and magnesium that will soften and shrink the stones. If you take it before you go to bed at night, as the urine builds up in the bladder, and it will soften the stones so you can pass it. And it worked, but it would take 7 or 8 weeks to pass the stone, taking that B6 and magnesium every night before I went to bed, screening my urine every day with a little cone to try to catch the stone. And it was a long and painful process, but I avoided surgery, and every year I passed the stone that way. But then I moved to California from Chicago, and when I was in sound therapy, I was thinking, wow, the next time I get this attack, I'm going to use my sound machine and heal it, pass it. Well, I had the attack this one day, and I was anxious to dial in my frequencies with this self-management auditory device that was researched to be the best machine on the market. It was better than the Tesla coils and the Royal Rife generators and all this stuff. But I couldn't get any benefit from the pain. It wasn't helping me at all. I was so frustrated. I was thinking, whoever said Socrates, whomever said, physician, heal thyself, I figured, how am I going to help other people? I can't even help myself. So I just sat on my bed meditating and turned the machine off, and I was meditating. I started hearing some sounds from like behind me, and there was nothing. It was outside behind the wall, and then I realized that the sounds were coming from me, and they were unlike any sounds I ever made as a singer, and they were literally overtones and harmonics that I was kind of, I guess, channeling. And I'd never read a book on sound healing or toning or anything like that at the time. And it was really kind of strange, but I just kind of went with it, making these tones, and for about 20 minutes. And then they kind of stopped, and I kept meditating. And then another 10 minutes later, the sound started coming through again. And I kind of went with the flow of these tones. And this was a curious situation, but it seemed to be, distracting me from the pain I was in. And I did that for about an hour and a half. And then I had to get up and use the bathroom. So I'm standing there in the bathroom, taking a leak, and I feel a little twinge of pain. And I think I passed the stone in the toilet. And it wasn't even that painful, just kind of a little twinge. And I fished a little tiny thing out of the toilet with some tissues. And the next day I went to UCLA Medical Center to see my doctor, and they did an x-ray. And he said, Wayne, your stone is gone. And I said, yeah, I thought so. And I handed him these tissues, put the stone in it. And I said, here, this is what I found in the toilet. Check it out. And he sent it to a chemist, and it was a calcium oxalate stone, which is what most stones are. Sometimes they're uric acid, but most of the time they're calcium oxalate. And that's what mine was. And then I went to work at trying to get to the source of why my body was creating the kidney stones. I was able to pass it in one day with toning, with my voice. It didn't take 7 or 8 weeks. The very first day I had the attack, the sound machine did me no good, and I passed it with my voice. So that was the big shift in my life and in my career, because I wound up trying it with a couple of my clients that I was using the sound machine with, couple of different ladies that trusted me. And when they came for their session with the sound machine, I asked if they'd like to try something a little different. And they trusted me. So they said, sure. So I put them on the couch and I did some toning into the cranium and the spinal column and whatnot. I didn't know what I was doing or if it would work. But you know, the first lady left, and then a few days later, the second lady came in. I did the same thing with them, and didn't know what would happen. But when they came back for their next session, to my surprise, first lady says, "Could you do that weird thing with your voice again? I felt better this week than the previous week with the sound machine." So I did that, and then the second lady, a few days later, said the same thing, and that started my world of studying the voice. I read every book I could on sound and toning, but none of them taught you anything. And that's why I got to work writing my book on sound medicine, because I couldn't find a single book that literally taught you uh, sound healing. I mean, I read some good books by Don Campbell, Jonathan Goldman, Kay Gardner, but you know, they were knowledgeable, but they didn't teach you anything. So I decided, you know, a year or two later, after I built up my practice and I knew this stuff worked, that I discovered this research that was in my own manual that I'd kind of skipped over. And they had researched 100 people with different types of sound, and they monitored the criteria of monitoring the results and the effects on the human body. They used brainwave studies, oxygen saturation, and blood pressure fluctuations. And at the end of the 30-day study of like 100 people, there was no question that by far, there wasn't anything that came close to the multiples and harmonics and overtones in the human voice had the most profound effect on the body. And nothing even came close to that. A distant second was acoustic musical instruments that were not electronically generated if they vibrated acoustically. Like what didn't matter if it was a drum or a horn or a crystal bowl or a didgeridoo or whatever. You know, I had all those things. I have 4 didgeridoos and bells and bowls and gongs and tuning forks and all that stuff. But I didn't use them that much, and I haven't used them that much since, because the ultimate healing instrument is sitting right under our noses, is the human voice. And that's what the research showed. And at first, I mean, it took the wind out of my sails, because I had invested over $4,000 in all this technological equipment that didn't help me at all. But then after I was bummed out and I queried these scientists, and I said, you know, in your own manual, it says that the human voice is number 1 and the sound machine is like number 3. And it's not even, it can't even beat acoustic instruments. And they said acoustic instruments were about a third as effective as the voice, and the sound machine was about a fourth as effective as the voice. So I said, why don't you use the voice? Why are you using this machine? And the answer they gave me just solidified the change in direction in my life, because they told me 2 things I had to shake my head at. The first was they said they wanted to have an environment where they could have tests and have backup theories and results, and they could monitor things and test people's results, and just a lot of psychobabble. That the second answer they gave me really blew my mind. They said people are more impressed with blinking red lights and view meters and sliders and technology than the human body. And that just kind of blew my mind. I said, that's just such a rationalization, when they know that the most effective instrument is the human voice. And the real truth, if they would have told the truth, is they didn't know how to use the voice. And rather than learn and study how to use the voice as the ultimate healing instrument, they created a machine that replicated the frequency waveform pattern of the human voice. And then I found out that the machine I was using that I got from them, the reason that it was more effective than the Tesla machine and the Rife generator and the Tesla coils was that it mimicked that the human voice has what's called a complex waveform in a standing wave pattern. And you know, most machines make sine waves. There's no healing power in sine waves. And then they created other machines with with sawtooth wave patterns and square wave patterns, and they weren't much better. But when they created this machine to mimic the human voice, to create a complex waveform pattern that looks kind of like a mountaintop range, it keeps shifting and changing like this, and it doesn't have a real predictable pattern. That's when they struck gold. That they found the machine that worked when they mimicked the human voice waveform. And when I learned that, I figured, well, I've been singing professionally for 12, 13 years at this point. And I figured, let me experiment with that. And that's what I did. Started with those two women, clients I had that trusted me. And then I just studied more and practiced more. I got to the source of my kidney stones. I've never had any kidney stones since in over 25 years. And then I healed some chronic knee pain I had. And then the emotional issues that I had that are the root, all physical issues I learned are rooted in the emotional body and the astral body. And so then I started working with emotional healing and metaphysical healing. And there was no going back. My sound machine went into storage. I never went back to it. And I've just developed my skills over the years, and I've healed I'm a walking testimonial. I've healed myself of liver disease. I had hepatitis C. The doctor said I could never heal it. It's a virus. And I proved them wrong. I healed it. And when they said I couldn't, and now they refer patients to me that they don't know what to do with. They started referring patients with Hep C to me to work with. I healed myself. I was on oxygen for over 2 years because of the Hep C. A certain amount of people have what's called hepatopulmonary syndrome, where the liver isn't sending enough blood to the lungs, and you don't get enough oxygen. I had shortness of breath, and I was on oxygen for 2 years. And then I had a bad car accident. I went into rehab, and it gave me time to focus on myself because I was so busy taking care of everybody else. I was ignoring myself, and I healed my lungs in 2 days. And the doctors monitored my oxygen saturation. I brought it up from a weak 78% to 98%. They monitored me for 2 days, every 2 hours for 2 days. It never went below 98%. That was back in 2010, and I had that accident, and it kind of blew the doctor's mind. And also the doctors told me I wouldn't walk for 6 months because in that accident, I broke my hand and both legs, both tibias and both legs. They said I wouldn't walk for at least 6 months. Using my vocal harmonics and overtoning combined with physical therapy exercises on my legs, I walked out of rehab in 5 weeks. The doctors couldn't believe it, that in 5 weeks I walked out of rehab without a walker. I mean, I used a cane for about a week or 10 days, and then I didn't even need the cane anymore. So, it's just one thing after the other. I've healed, countless things. But the emotional things are probably the most profound, and those are hard to articulate and to talk about. Healing issues with my father that passed away, and with my ex-wife and stuff, deeply rooted stuff that I learned, to access through my meditation and my sound therapy work. And so I'm just very, very grateful. I live in deep, gratitude every single day for this gift that, I've been given and that I don't take for granted. And I just live a life of service. There's a lot of things I probably could be doing that I make more money from, but, I don't care about that. My goal isn't to become rich. My goal is to just be able to do what I love to do and be of service to people and be of help and support. So.
Well, awesome.
That's the long answer, I guess. To the
No, that's great. Perfect answer. No, definitely no wrong answer. Yeah, thank you, Wayne, for sharing that and your story, your journey, and the amazing miracles you've experienced. I guess, give me the quick, and we've discussed it back and forth a little bit about what you're going to be sharing at during the conference. So, if you could give me kind of a quick overview of the area.
Well, at the conference, I thought, since you were interested in the, harmonics, and since that's my specialty, vocal harmonics and overtones and overtoning, and I just did that workshop. I'm doing a weekly webinar on Zoom every Saturday night at 7 p.m. I'm going to be switching it to 1 p.m. and at the end of June, because there's a lot of people in New York on the East Coast. And also I have clients all over the world. I'm supposed to be in Taiwan this time of the year. Every spring, I'm usually in Taiwan and Hong Kong and Shanghai, because my book was published in Chinese 2 years ago. And the people there are so sweet and open-minded and open-hearted. And, we think we're suffering under the influence of an egocentric president, but they're under the influence of communism and a very oppressive dictator. And they're fighting. And I didn't go there last fall because the college students were rioting and rebelling, and it was kind of dangerous. So we postponed my trip. And then the coronavirus hit, and then I couldn't go then, or couldn't go to Taiwan, where my business partner, who translated my book, Sound Medicine, with her partner 2 years ago. The book's been selling off the shelves there because the Chinese people, I'm trying to get the American people to wake up and use this work that I share all over the world. And it seems like it goes pretty well everywhere except in LA. I think you're never a star in your hometown, or they have too many choices in LA or something, because I could do a workshop here and I don't know, sometimes 20, 30 people show up, sometimes 2 or 3 people show up. But if I go to Chicago or Atlanta or Austin, Texas, or New York, I mean, there's like 200 people. I don't even have time to see everybody. It's like a waiting line. Same thing if I go to England or Rome or Tokyo or Taiwan. There's, people seem to get it, and they're really hungry for this work. So I go wherever the love is, basically. And it's all over the world, so it keeps me pretty busy. Except now with the pandemic, it slowed me down for a couple weeks. But now I'm doing phone work, doing diagnostic brain voice sound analysis, which is a very, very important part of my work. There's not many people that do it, and it's the only way to do sound healing effectively. If you don't know how to do diagnostic sound analysis, you're missing the boat, because you can't do effective sound healing work because, like for instance, these people doing these sound baths, they're not regenerative sound. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about at the conference on the 31st, is the 3 types of sound. There's 3 types of sound that I categorize that help people understand the difference between, relaxing sound, which is the first type of sound, and releasing sound, which is the second type of sound. And both of those are part of the healing process, but in and of themselves, they're not really healing sound. And like these people, for instance, doing sound baths, are creating relaxing sound with bells and bowls and gongs and all this kind of stuff. But it's not healing sound. They don't understand the difference between relaxing sound and regenerative sound. In order to do regenerative sound healing, you have to, first of all, do a diagnostic sound analysis and know exactly what frequencies are weak, what frequencies are healthy, and what frequencies are backed up or in excess in the brainwave pattern. Because that's the danger in going to a sound bath. These so-called sound healers that really don't know what they're doing, and they're holding these sound baths. And I'm not judging them, by the way. I mean, I have some friends that do sound baths, and they're nice people and they're well-intentioned. The problem is they don't really know what they're doing. They don't realize that if you give somebody a sound that they have an excess of in their brainwave pattern, you can exacerbate a physical or emotional issue that they have and a weakness in the body. And every week to 2 weeks, I have to realign somebody whose frequencies got all discombobulated from going to a sound bath. And so I got tired of doing it. So I started speaking up about it on Facebook. And then people started attacking me, like I'm trying to hurt their business or judge them. And I'm not judging anybody. I'm just speaking the facts as I know them, doing sound therapy work for 28 years. You need to know how to do an accurate diagnostic analysis before you attempt to do deep sound healing work, or you can harm somebody, especially if you're using sound machines. And if you're using all acoustic instruments, bowls and bells, you usually can't harm somebody too badly, because those are acoustic instruments and they're pretty safe. But you can make people dizzy and you can exacerbate an issue that they have. So why mess around? Cut to the source. The ultimate healing instrument is the human voice, because it's only the human voice that's a living instrument. You eliminate the middleman. As musicians, yeah, we like to have an instrument. We like to express ourselves through the instruments and things. I understand that, but it's still a middleman in the middle. When we use the
Definitely.
voice, we're going direct to spirit. The
Yeah.
body is connected to spirit. The voice is connected to spirit. You're
Hmm.
eliminating the middleman. There's nothing that has the power of the human voice if you know how to use it to create harmonics and overtones. There's
Definitely.
nothing that can top the human voice. So that's my message. That's what I'm preaching constantly. I may not see the full manifestation of that in my lifetime, but that's all right. I've got my proteges and my students and people that are carrying the torch, and are understanding. More and more people are understanding it as I travel the world and embracing it and having the results. You can look at the testimonial page on my website. I mean, I've got hundreds of testimonials from people that have healed all kinds of stuff and are just very passionate in their support of me, and I very much appreciate their support. But I'm not looking for props and plaudits. I'm just an average guy. I just I don't even really call myself a sound healer. I'm a certified sound therapist, but I don't even consider myself a healer. I didn't get into this to have a shingle on my door, to have a bunch of sick people come to me and
Yeah.
and try to help them and make them codependent or dependent on me. My work
I
is
hear
about
you.
empowering people, empowering them. Your voice, every person's voice is the most powerful instrument for their body, not
Hmm.
my voice. I mean,
Oh yeah.
mine could be second best. And that's why I do sound healing concerts. I do sound healing sessions for people. I have my harmonic recordings. I do whatever I can to support people, but I
Hmm.
make it clear to them, these are tools. You need to be the healer. You need to learn these exercises and how to create harmonics with the voice, because there's nothing more powerful for healing your body than your voice. Unfortunately, people have a lot of fear in the fifth chakra, around the
Oh
human
yeah.
voice, around the fifth chakra. So
Major.
that's what a lot of my work is about, is supporting them in trusting themselves, trusting in
Hmm.
sound, trusting the fifth chakra, and all the tips that I give them, the exercises and shortcuts I teach them to give them confidence to use their voice. That's what my workshops and my webinars are about.
Definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, no, yeah, I really appreciate that view about the sound work and not having a full understanding of it and stepping into it. When I walked into it through the Karuna Reiki standpoint, so that I already had kind of my own like light language that I've been working with the tones and seeing how they actually affect people physically and how they've changed and altered things for them. So stepping into leading like a sound concert, like you were saying, or like a sound meditation, we go through and I walk them in and pattern it, and it works through with the certain areas that they're working through for them. Um, I know, and there's so many different competing ideas as this is like it's not a new idea. None of these things are new, but the ideas are now getting fleshed out, and they're now having people like trying to put numbers on them. There was a study in one of the groups for the sound healing groups, and they talked about like the tones. They went through each of the chakra tones, and each of the specific notes that we ascribe to them right now in our understanding of it. And it goes through and it says only about like 25% of the people actually feel it in those places when they play the tone for the root chakra or the tone for the solar plexus, as we understand them. And the people don't get that full effect. And what I always say to people, like when we discuss that and when I discuss it in my classes, is that it's an individual thing. It's like how the shaman tune their flutes. They don't tune them to a specific note or a specific scale. They tune them to themselves, just like we tune to ourselves. And you talk about that healing, that you're not a healer. I don't ever say that I'm a healer when I talk about things. I do sound healing. I will, put those labels on things when we have to, but all healing is self-healing. I don't ever heal anyone. They heal themselves. I
That's
hold space. Another big part of this work is holding space for people and holding that vibration, that frequency. This whole thing is about entrainment. This conference we're doing, letting people find their own inner harmony and be strong enough to hold that field for themselves, to let the world entrain around them for what they have for their own inner strength.
And that's what I tell people, that if you feel you had a healing from a sound bath or somebody that played some gong or something, you should give yourself the credit. It's not them. They just accidentally maybe came upon the right frequency. The
Right.
body's a self-healing mechanism, and it can heal itself of anything if it's given a sound environment. Unfortunately, we're affected by the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the thoughts we think, the emotions we feel. All these things come in and affect our capacity. If we were able to purify all those things, we could heal cancer, we could heal anything ourselves. But unfortunately, we're carrying this karmic load of the environment. We're not in a perfectly sound environment, so we have to deal with these things. But I always tell people, that give yourself the credit. You have this healing ability. Just, get yourself out of the way and just trust the sound and go deeper and see what works, best for you. Because like I said, your voice is the most powerful instrument, and get past your fear around the fifth chakra and the voice. And then you just need to line it up, sync it up with the frequencies that you're weak in. Once you can get a diagnostic analysis and see, it's very accurate and it's very clear where you're weak, where you're okay and healthy, and where you're blocked. There's like 3 categories of sound, and that's what I hone in on and see where the weakness is, and then we can focus the sound exactly. The brainwave entrainment is for the weak tones, and then the release work, the toning release, is the active part of it. The beautiful thing about sound therapy is, we're all busy people. Nobody wants 30 minutes or 60 minutes of homework to do every day and to try to fit into their schedule. They'll just procrastinate, or like my mother said, throw the baby out with the bathwater and won't do anything. So I always tell people, be gentle with yourself, but do the brainwave entrainment. And it's so easy because it doesn't interrupt what you're doing. You can listen to harmonics while you're on the computer, while you're driving in your car, while you're having lunch. You don't have to interrupt what you're doing. And that's half of the battle right there. That's half of the therapy. That's the sound in. Then the sound out is your toning. That's going to take a little time, but you can adjust it with your schedule. I tell people, if you can do your toning release work at least twice a week, if you can do a 15 to 20 minute exercise twice a week, I ask them, can you give me that commitment? And they usually say, yeah, I can do 15, 20 minutes twice a week. That's it. You make that. Now, ideally, if you can do more, some of the people like me and my friends that were fanatics, we tone every day. I don't tell them to tone every day. If they inspire to do it, do it. It's more power to you. But I don't want to overwhelm them, and I liken the sound to food. And this is something that helps people understand. I teach with a lot of metaphors. I use a metaphor to teach brainwave entrainment, and I use a metaphor to teach sound, because it's like food. You can eat the healthiest food in the world, all fresh, organic fruits and vegetables and vegan food, whatever, healthy, high frequency food. But guess what? If you don't eliminate that food, you're going to die, no matter how healthy it is. And conversely, you can have great digestion and great elimination and do colonics and whatever. But if you don't eat, you're going to die. So, this is just simple common sense, that what goes out of the body is just as important as what goes into the body. And it's the same thing with sound. So the music that's on the radio and in the corporate America, it's nonsense. It's just computer generated crap. That's not real music. You don't even hear the real vibration of the instrument, of the saxophone or the trumpet or the piano or the human voice. You're hearing, as a musician or whatever recording you've done, it's a computerized representation, a digitized version of that instrument. Most people don't know that. They think they're listening to real music and real instruments, and it's not. It's artificial. So, if we can move to closer to the earth and to the organics of real vibrational sound, acoustic instruments that vibrate naturally, then you're getting close to it. And if you can learn your frequencies, which ones are strong and weak, you could use some acoustic instruments. But once you develop the confidence to use your voice, the instruments are going to go in the closet, because the voice is 3 times more effective than any instrument. So why go to number 3 when you go to number 1. I was born on the first day of the first month of the year, January 1st. So I've always been obsessed with being number 1, whatever I do. It's not ego, it's just a part of just wanting to strive to be closer to God and to be as good as I can be, to not settle for second best is really what I'm talking about.
Definitely. Cool.
So see,
All right.
sounds like food, the food that comes in. Listen to harmonics every day. Listen to vocal harmonics, ideally your own. If people had enough time and money and to record their own voice, it could do wonders for them. But even the next best thing, somebody else's harmonics. Just listen to some healthy harmonics and then make them with your voice to really, and that's going to really transport your life immensely.
Totally. Well, thanks, Wayne. I appreciate you sharing that piece. I like to end with a brief meditation. Do you want to lead it by any chance, or?
Sure. I mean, I do this every day, and I lead meditations at conferences, and we can do that. How long a meditation did you like to do?
Just like a few minutes, like maybe like share like a tone or something we could do together or over it, or what do you think?
Okay. All right. Well, what I'd like to do is, and if whoever's watching in, and join us, and just close your eyes and take some deep diaphragmatic breaths. Don't, lift your shoulders and breathe shallow. Breathe from the diaphragm, nice and deep. Keep your feet planted firmly on the floor, the ground, or the carpet, or wherever you're sitting. Don't cross your legs or your ankles or anything. Keep your feet grounded on the floor. Breathe deep. And as you breathe in love and light, and breathe out any fears and darkness. And another thing that helps is to imagine a beautiful violet flame with your eyes closed. Imagine a beautiful violet flame before you, in front of you, or in the middle of the room, and just release into that violet flame so that you're responsibly releasing any negative energy, anything that doesn't serve you. Just release it in that violet flame to be transmuted to a higher frequency. Don't release it into your neighbor or your family or into your walls. Just release it with conscious intention into the violet flame, and continue to breathe in love and allowance. Breathe out any fears and judgments. Breathe in harmony and fulfillment and high energy, and breathe out any dissonance into the violet flame. Breathe out any confusion or depression, lack of confidence. Breathe out whatever you perceive to be in your way, any blockages, anything negative. Just breathe it out with your conscious intention into the violet flame, and breathe in whatever serves you. And now, please join me in spirit in this sound invocation. I invoke and evoke the divine loving consciousness of the infinite spirit within. Father, Mother, God, infinite intelligence, divine love and wisdom, as a clear and open channel with sound, light, and love as my guides. Ask that the sound of light now uplift us. May the light of sound guide and direct us. May the love of spirit embrace and protect us. And lastly, may the resonant sound of my soul resonate through us for the healing and harmony of all. So from this sacred space that we co-create here in sound and in light and in love, let us focus at the heart chakra, at the center of the sternum, and just breathe into that heart space right in the center of your chest. And imagine a beautiful green light emanating from your heart center. The heart center, the heart chakra is the center of love and caring and compassion. And it also rules our healing energy, the manifestation of our healing powers that don't come from us personally. They come from within, from the spirit within. And as we allow ourselves to surrender to Father, Mother, God, to the spirit within, we can access this Holy Spirit at any time. All we need to do is open our hearts, ask for protection when we're going within. So if we do that, God, Spirit protects us, and no dark energies, nothing can harm us as long as we're aligned with Spirit and the sound, light, and love of God. In the beginning was the Word. These are not written words. The Word was a sound that all life comes from. The sacred sound current is with every human being. We came into this dimension on this sound current, and we'll go back to our divine home within on that sacred sound current when it's time, when our karma is complete here and it's time to ride inward and upward on that sound current. But for right now, in this now moment, let us appreciate the body temple that protects and houses our soul, our real essence, as one with each other. And let us see our body filled with this green light, filling our muscles, our tendons, our blood vessels, our skin, our bones, filling our arms and legs, thighs and forearms, knees and elbows, ankles and wrists, hands and feet, fingers and toes, all filling up with this healing green light, coming up through our abdomen, our chest, up through our throat and head. And just see it coming out the crown of our head like a beautiful green fountain, cascading down, caressing our body with its healing green glow. As we sit in this loving space together in our oneness, let us resonate the ah sound for 1 minute and just resonate from the heart chakra, the ah sound. The ah sound is a very simple yet powerful vowel sound that connects us with God. The ah sound is in the word God, it's in Ra, and it's in Nam. A lot of the appellations and words and names of God have the ah sound in it. So let us resonate in spirit together with the ah sound for a minute. Take a deep diaphragmatic breath and join me. 1, 2, 3. Let us take a moment to appreciate this gift of the human voice that we share, the gift of sound, light, and love within the body temple, the body mind. And let us now raise our consciousness. Let us rise up from the heart center, moving up the sternum, past the collarbone, rising up like cream rising to the top of milk, rising up to the throat center. And let us focus on our throat chakra, where the human voice lives and breathes, and see a beautiful blue light emanating from the throat center, the throat chakra, that rules our creativity and our communication and our voice, the sound out, the sound in, this beautiful creative center, and see that blue light expand and also fill our body, our whole body, with this blue light moving through all our blood vessels and the arteries and veins and blood vessels and capillaries, sending its perfect balance and perfect love and life force energy throughout our body, through all the organs that need this blood and this food, this energy, until it fills our whole body. And let us see and feel that blue light filling our whole body and also coming out the crown of our head like a beautiful blue fountain, cascading down and caressing us in that healing blue light. Now let us make another sound together with the intention of removing any blocks to our toning, to our communication. If there's anybody in our life that needs our forgiveness, our love, our communication, bring them into this space with you. Open your heart and your voice to include anybody, whether it's family members, particularly those that need it. Some of these disillusioned leaders or politicians, let us share this sound, light, and love with them, and hold the space for all who need it as we communicate from our fifth chakra in sound, light, and love. And let us start with the A sound. The A is the most effective sound for resonating the fifth chakra. But this time, let us open it up. Let us start with the A and let it take us to any sound, any harmonic or vowel, or any sound that needs to release from our body, any sound that will open up our energy so that we can communicate more honestly and completely and creatively and powerfully with ourselves, so that we can communicate in that way with others from our fifth chakra. So let us do this together now, starting with the A sound, and let the sound take us wherever it needs to take us to share our sound and tone for, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes, or however much time we have left in this meditation. And then we'll have a few moments of silence when we feel complete with the sound, with this creative sound from our fifth chakra. And then we'll sit in a few moments of silence, and then we'll ground ourselves before we open our eyes. So when you're ready, please join me with the A sound, and wherever you choose to go from there, you're most welcome. 1, 2, 3. Hare tuncare, cimpare, tuntare, e carasciutancare, cotuntere, mignare, hiccare, tucciare, tita pitonte, hare tonde, gare, gendoce putachiri, putachiri, kiri, canciore, digna, hare toncire, tontare, mignaro, cucciatori, mignare, e giandacatori, magnare, toncere, ignare, dire, bullare, dodomanianire, Andiamo guascendate tere budande de dore. Arenare. Arenare. Ingiare nella mognore tu già da dinde bore. Ingiare di getture. E te binne, binne. Già. Listen to the sounds and the silence. Listen to the silence and the sound. Always resonate with the sounds in your environment, even if they're unpleasant. Never resist them. It's what you resist persists. Always choose resonance. Always go deeper into the sound. And let us listen to our body sounds, our pulse, our breath, those natural life rhythms. body's always speaking to you. If we just pause to listen and also be grateful for its messages. And they say, listen to your gut. They weren't kidding. Your body knows. Honor it, listen to it, appreciate it. Instead of judging it or being critical of it, thank your body, love your body for helping you to survive and enjoy this dimension in this world. And so let's close this meditation by grounding the body. Always end your meditations and your tonings with a grounding tone so that you can return to your responsibilities of work or family or whatever you need to do in a focused, grounded way. Otherwise, you can be a little out of your body or a little spaced out if you don't ground yourself. So get in the habit, if you're not already in that habit, get in the habit of grounding yourself. Only takes about 15 or 20 seconds. We're just going to sigh into a high note at the third eye center above the physical eyes or the crown of the head, anywhere up there. Just sigh into any high vowel that you feel comfortable with. Could be an ah, an ooh, an oh, any vowel. Just sigh into your head voice. And in one breath, just ride the pitch down as you expel the air out of your lungs. Ride the pitch lower and lower down through your chin and your chest and your abdomen, down to the base of your spine at the first chakra. And when you get down, you run out of breath and you're down to the lowest tone in your voice. And you can open up your eyes, take a deep breath, stretch a little bit and feel newly energized, enlightened, illuminated, yet at peace and relaxed. So ready on the count of 3, just sigh into any high vowel sound and write it down. 1, 2, 3.
Oh,
Well, I hope everybody had a good vowel movement. It's always healthy to vowel every day.
thank you, Wayne. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Amazing. And I look forward to seeing everybody out there in internet land and social media world to be joining us at the